Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura and welcome to another video. This video will just be going over my 2023 reading journal setup, and it's still in progress. So I just wrote out 2023 kind of sloppily, and then I think for every book, every month I will place my favorite book out of the month here, and they're just like little mini squares. So this is my reading tracker for 2023. I wanted to read 70, but I could only fit 60 little coloring things in, and I did a dragon for this year because I thought it would be fun. I just got some inspiration from Pinterest that I used to draw out this dragon. And so each little symbol equals one book. And I've already read 3 books so far, which is kind of exciting. So this is just my dragon index. And so I'll write the number corresponding to the dragon symbol, as well as the book title, what type of media I've read it on, whether it be Libby, Kindle Limited, or physical book. And unfortunately my pen is very smeary, so I should figure that out before I smear all over these pages, but that's okay. And this is just an extra page in case I read more than 60 books. Oh, this is for book covers, so eventually I'm going to print out all the books that I read, but I like to save money on the type of paper I use for the HP sprocket, so I'm just waiting for a full sheet and then I'll start. It's 7 by 6 books down, so it equals 42, and so I just have an extra page for that and an extra page for that. And then this is just a sneak peek, I guess, but this is just my January reads so far. So now I'm gonna flip back to 2022 when I started this. I'm just gonna clip this here, maybe. This clip is from the Traveler's Notebook Company. Okay, so I'll just flip back. Okay, so I used to list out, this is my 2022 start. I started this in June, as you can see. And then I did July, and then I didn't understand. I wasn't able to count very well the pages, actually, that I actually needed. How many times can I say actually? Sorry. So, if I were to continue to go at this pace, I would have ran out of room, and so I just gave up, apparently. So then, these are just the books I read before June 2022. I think forever, it's not specifically the year 22, just books that I have read. And then I had a table of contents going for a while, but then I soon gave up after that, unfortunately. So this is the first book I read in 2022. And I used to draw pictures, really crappy pictures, but then I kind of gave up. This is my Star of Writing. So the first book I read of the year was They Both Died at the End by Adam Sylvia, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. The next book I read was The Cruel Prince, and I gave this 3 stars. This was my first fantasy sci-fi. The next book I read was The Fine Print with my crappy handwriting, or drawings, and then this I gave 2 stars. The next book I read was Neon Gods by Katie Robert. I gave this 3 stars. The next book I read was The Initiation. Sometimes I would have no quotes, and then like it got very long, so I'd write a very long review about how I didn't like this book, which eventually I do change my setup. So this is King of Corium. I gave 2 stars, and that's like the picture of the cover. So the next book I read was Drop Dead Diva, and I didn't like this either, so I gave it 1.5 stars. My stars get better too. Journaling is just a process that I always in the frame. Sorry about that. So the next book I read was Book Lovers by Emily Henry, and I gave this 3.5 stars, and I tried to draw some little things that I thought represented. So this is books, which it doesn't even look like books, and that's like Welcome to Sunshine Falls. So the next book I read was Hooked, with the cover. I wish my covers were a little bit bigger, but that's beside the point. I gave this book 3 stars, and I drew like the clock, the acorn, and the ship that's like in the book. If you read it, you probably know what that means. Next book I read was Electric Idol. I gave this 4 stars, 4.5 stars, or 4 stars, can't tell. And I just have, she's like a social media person, a gun, and like a heart. The next book I read was King of Battle and Blood. I gave this 2 stars, and I did not like it. The next book I read was Wicked Beauty. I gave this 4.5 stars, and I enjoyed this book, but I messed up, so I just decided to tape in like a cover. The next book I read was the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey, and I gave this 4.75 stars. And this is on Kindle Limited. So then I figured out that it's really hard to write a full synopsis and do quotes and then do a review. So I switched for books, especially for books that I don't really like. So then I switched to this format. Just kidding. I switched to this format where I just have like a little synopsis. I do some quotes that I have, and then I do the writing. So I did A Touch of Darkness. I read A Touch of Darkness. And then I gave this book 3 stars. I read From Blood and Ash, and I gave this book 2 stars. And I remember Poppy and Hawk, and I did not like Poppy and Hawk. But I will eventually start to read the second book and see if I like them any better. So if you can hear my dog chewing, she's living life as she should right now. The next book I read was Haunting Adeline. I gave this book 2.5 stars, and this is supposed to be a rose. The next book I read was Wicked Villains. This was a 3-book series. So I read Learn My Lesson, A Worthy Opponent, and A Prince. Maybe I only read 2 books. Okay, I only read 2 books, and I gave these just 3 stars. Next book I read was Shadow and Bone. I gave this book 3.5 stars. This is probably my favorite out of the trilogy, just so you know. Then I read Twisted Love. I gave this 3 stars. The next book I read was He Had Been With Me, and I gave this 1.5 stars. I did not like this book, and I don't get people who like it. Anyway, I do get it. It just didn't do it for me, I guess. So this is my book tracker from 2022, and as you can see, I had to add books, and I got lazy, so I didn't color it in, but that's okay. Just in case I want to take a screenshot. Okay. I just used colored pencil and then like a thick black pen to line the books. So the next book I read was Choices by Adriana Patridge, and I gave this book 2.5 stars. The next book I read was Siege and Storm by Lee Bardugo. I gave this 2 stars, yes. Then I read Bittersweet Memories. I remember reading this on a plane, and I gave this 2.5 stars, and it was very interesting to read it on a plane. I was very entertained. This is my September TBR. As you can see, I didn't do much, and the other colors mean I read them in different months. So this is when I gave up on physical TBRs. I just have a bunch of TBRs on my Goodreads in different categories. Okay, so this is another part where I have dog fur here, where I switched up how I track. So this is how I currently track my books right now, as well as using the dragon coloring thing. Anyway, the first book I read in September was Rise and Rooting, which is the 3rd book. I gave this 2 stars, but if I would rate it now, I would probably give it a 1 star, because the ending was super bad, and it really pissed me off. The next book I read was House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I gave this 3 stars. Next book I read was The Flat Share, and I gave this 4 stars, and then I read Dance of Thieves. And I like this better, like I feel like you use the space better, or at least I use the space better. And then I only have quotes as well as my reviews. I no longer do synopsises. And then I read The Liar's Crown, which I gave 2 stars, and that's the cover. And these are just my stats for the month. So in October, my first book I read was I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurry. I gave this 4 stars. The next book I read was The Vow of Thieves. Did I miss a page? I swear I read I did. Dance of Thieves. I gave this 4 stars. Oops. So the next book I read was A Court of Thorns and Roses. I gave this 4 stars. The next book I read was When True Loves, and I gave this 4.5 stars. And then I read Mongolia Parks, and I gave this 3.5 stars. It's a very toxic relationship. Check trigger warnings. The next book I read was A Court of Mist and Fury. And actually I did, after, change this book to 5 stars, because I do actually really like it, despite, like, giving it a 4.5 star. After I read Darling Venom, and I gave this 4 stars, and this was a super long book, but it was worth it. And then I read The Inheritance Games, and I gave this 3 stars. A lot of people like this book, which I don't really understand why. I don't really get the hype. So if you can leave a comment down below, that would be great. And let me know how you feel about this book or any other books I read in 2022. So this was the stats for this month. Oh, and I also read Birthday Girl, but it was so bad that I forgot about it, and I gave it 1 star. So that's why I have it crossed out, and I put, like, LOL right there. Anyway, it's fine. We're thriving now. Kind of. So, in November, I read A Court of Wings and Runes. Yeah, and I gave this 3.5 stars. The next book I read was Brutal Prince, and I gave this 2.5 stars. So here I started to highlight quotes that I liked, that I found interesting. Anyway, the next book I read was Lock Every Door, and I gave this 2 stars. And then I read Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I gave this 3.5 stars. And then I read A Court of Frost and Starlight. I gave this 3 stars, and I messed up on my format, which made me sad, but that's okay. And then the next book, not the last book I read, was A Court of Silver Flames. I gave this 2 stars, and then I read The Song of Achilles, and I gave this 3 stars. Apparently, I started recording manga, so that's fun. So I read The Girl from the Other Side. The first one, I gave this 4 stars. And then I read the first one in Throne of Glass, and I gave this 3 stars. Please let me know if it's worth to continue reading this series. I know it gets better, and I know that Sarah J. Maas started that book when she was very young. So, and these are just my reading stats for November. So then my first book that I read was in December was A King of Stars and Shadows. I gave this 4 stars. The next book I read was A Kingdom of Blood and Betrayal. I gave this 3 stars. If you want actual reasonings like why I gave it certain stars, you can just check out my YouTube channel for the other books. I'm sorry if I'm awkward in those videos. I'm trying to do better, so hopefully in 2023 I will be less awkward in videos. Anyway, the next book I read was Guild, and then I gave this 3 stars. Then I read Stalking Jack the Ripper, which apparently I forgot. Oh, I just haven't printed the little stickers out. I read Stalking Jack the Ripper, then I read Glint, and then I read Daughter of the Moon Goddess. And the last book I read, just kidding. Then I read Gleam. I gave 3 stars. And then the last book of 2022 is I Who Have Never Known Men. I gave this 2.5 stars. And this is just going to be some repetition from my last video that I just uploaded. But this is just the book stats of 2022. So the number of books I read was 71 books. The number of pages I read was 33,397. Highest rated from my reading for me reading this year was A Court of Mist and Fury. My lowest rated was If He Had Been With Me or Drop Dead Queen. My most read month was 11 books in August, and my lowest read month was 4 books. And then I guess my favorite book of the year was A Court of Mist and Fury. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Subscribe if you like journal videos, as well as book videos and other content. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Thanks again. Bye.